Howdy ding dongs, Mathers here. I just wanted to give you a little bit more information for 15.6, specifically the questions that talk about samples and populations and whether or not samples are biased. Biased means the data kind of skews one way for some reason or another, and it's not a trustworthy sample. The main way a sample can be, let's say, bad or inadequate is if it's biased. Say the town wanted to close down a candy shop, and you wanted to get a public poll on how people felt about the candy shop closing. So you decided to conduct a survey, and the people you chose, what you did was you stood outside the candy shop and surveyed the first 100 people who went in or came out. And then your data showed that 90% of the people were opposed to the candy shop being closed. So you assume then that the entire town has 90% desire to keep the candy store in business and only 10% want to shut it down. Well, your sample is obviously biased. You only asked questions to the people who patronize that candy store, who actually go, who probably like candy and probably like buying it there. That is a biased sample. There's at least 2 questions that deal with a situation very much like that. The other way a sample size can be no good is if it's too small. You can't just survey 5 people or 10 people. And there's an example in the chapter in which they survey 2 people and one likes it and one doesn't, and they say, well, the town is evenly split. That's ridiculous. Your survey should be as big as possible. The number of people you interview or count or whatever is called the sample. And the book doesn't really tell us what the ideal sample size is or what the magic number is for being too small, low to too small. But I think for the terms of this chapter, anything north of like 80 or so, maybe even as low as 50, is considered an adequate sample size. Yesterday, if you watched my cow video, we saw what a too small a sample size does. We counted 7 cows, 4 were black, 3 were brown. And if you wanted to divide those fractions by a calculator, you'd see that the 3/7 would be brown cows. We'd expect 43% of the cows here to be brown, and we'd expect 4 out of 7, that is roughly 57% of the cows, to be black. And then when I went down and we looked at that wider shot where there were 30 or so cows, almost all of them were black. So our small sample size proved that it was too small. Because it didn't show the big picture accurately. When we took that wider shot of 30 cows, that would have been our better sample size. But it didn't work out that way. So that's why sampling more is better. Stay safe, everyone, and I will see you next time.